Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, welcome to Learner Competitive Exams. Today we will discuss what is the future of Gaza and possible solutions. ये जो गज़ा इसराइल कन्फ्लिक्ट्स या गज़ा इसराइल वार स्टार्ट हुई है तो इसके पॉसिबल सॉल्यूशन कौन से हैं और इसका फ्यूचर की प्रेडिक्शन थोड़ी सी देखते हैं. First of all, at the end of the war that started on 7 October lies a big unknown place called the future. The old status quo was dangerous and painful, especially for Palestinians living under Israeli occupation, but it was familiar. Then, after 7 October, it was smashed by the Hamas attacks and Israel's response. Israeli Defense Minister unveils governance proposal for post-war Gaza. On the future governance of Gaza once the conflict between Israel and Hamas concludes, there would be limited Palestinian rule in the territory, with Hamas losing control and Israel maintaining overall security control. The four-corner plan include Israel retaining security control, a multinational force overseeing reconstruction post-Israeli bombing, and an unspecified role for neighboring Egypt. Palestinians would be responsible for running the territory with the condition of refraining from hostile action or threats against Israel. This was the proposal for post-war Gaza conflicts by Israeli Defense Minister. Then what is the future for Gaza? In the wake of the October 7 attack and the conflict that has followed, there are two main possibilities. First, the current situation, the Israeli Defense Force IDF has northern Gaza surrounded and will search and destroy Hamas underground tunnel system. Around 70% of Gaza's 2.3 million residents have fled their homes since the conflict began. More will follow and a few 100,000 will remain. तो वहाँ पे जो उन्होंने सर्च शुरू किया हुआ है, अराउंड 70% उनके बिल्डिंग्स डिस्ट्रॉय हो गई हैं. Despite all the threats, it is unlikely that foreign agents including Hezbollah and their sponsor Iran will directly engage Israel. More Hamas and IDF fighters will die in combat. Some Israeli hostages will be rescued, some will not. The likely outcome is that Israel will control this part of Gaza for several years. Israel has occupied Gaza before. They originally took the Strip after a failed 1967 attack by several Arab neighbors known as the Six-Day War. One of the agreements from the end of the war resulted in Arab on the now occupied West Bank moving to Gaza, the northern part of Palestine. In 2005, Israel withdrew from Gaza while retaining control over its border, seashore, and airspace. It finally completely abandoned the area in 2008. Both Israelis and Arabs have legitimate claim on the West Bank. A movement called Zionism began in the late 18th century that influenced many Jews from around the world to move to Palestine to reclaim their ancient homeland. Thus, by the 1930s, the number of the Jews had risen to a point that alarmed many Palestinian Arab leaders. However, British mandate land registries and autonomous registry shows that individual Arabs in Palestine did not own most of the land area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Large portions were owned by rich landlord Arab, Armenian or Greeks. Christian churches owned significant land, especially around cities like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Nazareth, and various monasteries around the countryside. So, when this current war is over, what are the main two possible outcomes? One possibly is a return to the uneasy, violent status quo, which, based on history, the Israelis are not likely to occupy Gaza 4 years from now. In this time, the United Nations and Arab nations like Saudi Arabia will rebuild housing and infrastructure. Some Palestinians will return, but without direct access to Israel, it will be economically unstable. The Israelis will probably turn security over to the United Nations. The second possibility is a two-state solution. All the major powers, including China, Russia, and America, want this solution. The main opposition comes from Iran. This solution requires painful compromises. A lot of land is extremely disputed and claimed by both sides. For example, East Jerusalem and Al Aqsa Temple Mount, both sides claim both and both sides refuse to negotiate. Maybe it is time for the major powers, especially the US and Iran, to officially agree not to interfere, allow the two states to decide their forms of government and future cooperation. Despite some commentators declaring that the Oslo Accord, the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, and the Abraham Accord are dead. They are not. They could be the basis for a future peaceful coexistence. How would Gaza be ruled if Israel achieves its desired goal, given that Hamas currently governs the territory? One thing is clear, though, according to Milstein, a power vacuum must not be allowed to merge. Withdrawing quickly would do that, he said, leaving behind a vacuum which will be filled by anarchy and radical Islamist group. The situation in Afghanistan is an example of this. There, the extremist Islamic State group has managed to use the weakness of state institutions after the Taliban took over for its own purpose. The same extremist group has also taken advantage of the lack of state control in the Sahel region. Iran, which supports the Hamas group and other militias in the region, might also benefit from such a power vacuum in Gaza and find new allies on partner inside the Gaza Strip. So, how would order be brought about in the Gaza Strip after this conflict ends? There are several options, but each one presents challenges. First of all, Israel took control of the Gaza Strip. First possibility, there are voices in Israel who are suggesting that Israel colonize the Gaza Strip again. Israel would not be able to reoccupy the Gaza Strip. This scenario would pose another challenge. Israel would have to seal itself off from the Gaza Strip even more. Israel would make itself a jail warden presiding indefinitely over an immense prison camp to which Gaza has long been compared. Second possibility, Palestinian Authority takes over Gaza's administration. Palestinian Authority returning to Gaza and taking control there, but this idea has a weakness. As we know, Palestinian Authority led by Muhammad Abbas and dominated by the Fatah Party administers semi-autonomous areas of Israeli-occupied West Bank, but in reality, it only controls a small part of the occupied West Bank. Most of the area is actually under Israel's control. The Palestinian Authority and the party that run it, Fatah, is unpopular among locals in the occupied West Bank. So, if the Palestinian Authority were to move into the Gaza Strip after an Israeli victory over Hamas, it could be seen by some as a war profiteer who seized power on the back of the war victim. Third possibility is Palestinian civilian administration. A better option, albeit more difficult, would be a mixed Palestinian civilian authority, like different representatives of Palestinian society, including, for example, local mayors. It would also like have close to ties to the Palestinian Authority leadership. Model like this could potentially be supported by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the US. But it is likely this new order won't be stable for a long time and will face a lot of challenges, but it is much better than all the other bad alternatives. Number 4, possibility UN led administration. Theoretically, the United Nations can take over a former conflict zone after one party to the conflict is defeated, refer as earlier example from Kosovo and East Timor, but that's not realistic in the Gaza Strip. It would be far harder in this case, if not impossible, because this conflict is so much the focus of global public opinion. Having Western states potentially play a strong role here is also like to be seen very critically. To getting a UN mandate on such a matter would also be difficult. Possibility 5, administration run by Arab state. It is a difficult scenario that envisages other Arab states taking the lead in the Gaza Strip together with the Palestinian Authority. This could actually be in the interest of some Arab states, especially those who have strong reservations about the political group Muslim Brotherhood. Hamas is seen as the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and UAE opposed. At the moment, the rhetoric coming out of these countries has focused on solidarity with Palestinians, Palestinian suffering, and possible war crimes committed by Israel in Gaza. The civilian population in those Arab countries have expressed the same sentiments. Nonetheless, a defeat of Hamas will not be viewed unfavorably in Riyadh and Cairo. So, above all, a scenario like this would mean that Palestinians might be able to be convinced that their interests would be represented and not just pushed inside. However, that would require some unity process involved as well as cooperation with the West and UN. Besides political support, financial support will also be needed so that any such model can survive economically. Such a model would not only offer Palestinians better support prospects but also mean more security for Israel. Unfortunately, the current ongoing conflict means it is nuclear. It is unclear whether other Arab states, even those with diplomatic contacts with Israel, could be willing to invest political capital in such a plan. Experts said such a model would only be possible in the medium term. डियर स्टूडेंट, ये वेस्टर्न मॉडल से कुछ पॉइंट्स लिए गए थे। नौ आप इसकी कंडीशन देख सकते हैं। ये वेस्ट बैंक है, यहाँ पे बमबारी हुई है। तो दीवार ऑफ अक्टूबर 7, 2023 लास्ट लेक्चर में भी हमने स्टडी किया था मिडल ईस्टर्न पॉलिटिक्स में। तो ये आप देख सकते हैं गज़ा सिटी है और खान यूनिस है, रफ़ा है, देर अल बला है और नॉर्थ गज़ा है। Israel had to continue until we reached a complete victory. The future of Israel depend on that. ये ओहद तल एक मेंबर ऑफ इसराइली पार्लियामेंट फ्रॉम रिलीजियस जियोनिज्म पार्टी का है, जिसने मज़ीद कहा है डिफीटिंग हमास हैज़ टू बी द मेन प्रायोरिटी। तो नेतन्याहू कैन नॉट से एनीथिंग दैट इज़ गुड फॉर द पैलेस्टीनियन एज इट विल बी बैड फॉर मोस्ट ऑफ हिज गवर्नमेंट। रिनहोल्ड ने कहा है, बट एज फार एज द इसराइली पब्लिक गोज, they also don't want to hear about this right now. Even if it is not good policy, it is very understandable at this point. The entity that will control Gaza the day after does not exist right now. Tell told the media line it cannot be the Fatah because there really is no difference between Fatah and Hamas. The only difference is that in the West Bank, Israel is controlling and preventing the Palestinian Authority from having the capability that Hamas has. So Israel has mobilized around 350,000 reservists. Some of those troops are standing ready at the border of Lebanon. Others are waiting at the edge of Gaza Strip, ready to take part in a ground offensive into the Palestinian Authority. The objective of the much discussed invasion of Gaza, in whatever form they might eventually take, it is the destruction of the Hamas militant group, designated a terror organization by Germany, the European Union, and the US, among others. Hamas was always very clear in its goal, promoting jihad and erasing Israel. ये मिल्सन ने DW से इंटरव्यू के दौरान कहा है। मिल्सन फार्मर मेंबर ऑफ इसराइल मिलिट्री इंटेलिजेंस का है और अब वो रिसर्चर हैं एट दी मोशे दयान सेंटर फॉर मिडल ईस्टर्न एंड अफ्रीकन स्टडीज़ एट टेल अवीव यूनिवर्सिटी। तो आ रोड मैप फॉर द फ्यूचर ऑफ फ़लस्तीन, इसको देखें तो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट all Palestinian factions should be committed to the fulfillment and eventual expansion of the Qatar brokered agreement. Second, Hamas should declare its acceptance of and commitment to the Fatah reconciliation agreement it signed in Cairo in 2017. Hamas should publicly acknowledge the peace accord signed between Israel and Palestine Liberation Organization. The PLO should be reactivated and reformed in a way that would ensure the representation of all Palestinian parties and components within its structure. The reconstruction of Gaza should start immediately under international and Arab supervision. Israel should be made to set up a compensation fund for the families, both Israeli and Palestinian, victimized by its war, aggression, and occupation. Western countries adopted the idea that Russia would be compelled to pay for its war in Ukraine and Ukraine would be rebuilt using frozen Russian assets. International observers should be deployed along Israel's border to prevent confrontation. Turkey, which is accepted as an honest broker by the Palestinians and has strong relations with the West and Israel as a NATO member, could be asked to take on this important responsibility. The siege on the Gaza should be lifted fully and unconditionally, with its border crossing, airports and ports reopened, and its residents given full freedom of movement. Permanent and secure passage between Gaza and the West Bank should be established. Turkey can also play a crucial role in opening Gaza up to the world by establishing maritime and aerial bridges for reconstruction and development. Israel should be pressured to immediately and unconditionally halt all its resentment settlement activities and initiate comprehensive negotiations for bringing an end to its occupation under UN auspices. तो ये यूएन की बॉडीज़ को चाहिए कि इसराइल को प्रेशराइज करें कि वो सेटलमेंट एक्टिविटीज़ और comprehensive negotiation start करें. Arab League should continue to push for its 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, which called for all Arab states to recognize and normalize relations with Israel in exchange for the establishment of Palestinian state on the 1967 border. Finally, if this political track towards sustainable peace and dignified coexistence fails or faces a significant roadblock, a reformed PLO that is kept in check by the Palestinian people through regular election should be accepted as the sole entity that could decide on the future direction and nature of Palestinian struggle for liberation. Dear student, ये फ्यूचर ऑफ फ़लस्तीन का एक इम्पोर्टेंट लेक्चर था जिसमें हमने उनके कुछ फ्यूचर की प्रेडिक्शंस की और कुछ रिकमेंडेशन भी दी. एग्ज़ाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन पूछे जा सकते हैं. आपने इनको अच्छे से तैयार करना है. इंशाल्लाह नेक्स्ट वीडियो में नए टॉपिक के साथ मिलते हैं. तब तक अपना ख्याल रखिएगा. अल्लाह हाफिज़.